It's time for 515 Fantasy Football.
I know football. Are you ready for some football?
Domination on Sundays begins with listening to these guys on Thursdays.
You ready for this?
Over 40 years of fantasy football experience between them.
Yeah!
One is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps, husband and father, entering his 18th year of fantasy competition. Brian Eikenberry. The other, also a proud husband and father, is one of the winningest fantasy minds in the state. Celebrating 24 years of excellence. Andy Hall.
Let's get the game on!
It's showtime. The 515 Fantasy Football Show with your hosts, Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry.
Welcome to what is probably my favorite week of the NFL season, Thanksgiving week. Quality time with loved ones, an incredible feast of delicious homemade food, football games all day and night, naps, leftovers, and a time to give thanks for all of life's blessings, which hopefully includes a fantasy playoff berth. Please. Andy Hall, joined as always by my good friend Brian Eikenberry. I'm thankful for you, buddy.
Oh, you're so sweet. I'm thankful for you. I do enjoy the Thanksgiving Day games. Lions always play, so that's always a time-honored tradition, but I eat a ton of food always. Thanksgiving is no exception. I usually fall asleep during the game, so that kind of stinks.
Is that because the Lions are losing more often than not?
You know, typically. But our Thanksgiving Day games are the best, and you'll hear it in my matchup.
I have a theory Brian came up with the whole tryptophan wives' tale. He was just bored with the Lions.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it is.
Turkey's got tryptophan in it, man. We invite you to be a part of our online community on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter, at 515 Fantasy, and online at espndesmoines.com, where you can listen to the show anytime, in addition to iTunes, Stitcher, and on the air at 1350 a.m., ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. Brian and I are also contributors to the SleeperBot app and invite you to download it if you haven't already. We offer instant advice and start-sit answers every Sunday morning leading up to opening kickoff. In fact, started noticing some local names popping up on the SleeperBot app. Some folks from here locally that obviously listened to the show, downloaded the app, and now they're asking for our advice.
Well, that's cool. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. The interaction is the greatest part. Hopefully, I took a few on the chin this week, so I'm hoping I didn't give you bad advice.
I did. I feel pretty good about my advice that I gave out. I think I advised some folks to start Doug Martin, which didn't turn out to be the smartest
I was all
thing.
in on Brait this week because I was expecting Evans to get doubled, leaving Brait open. He did have and it's no excuse, but he had a TD called back. And he had a big gain called back on penalties, which really frustrated me, and he did not pan out at all this week.
Will tie.
That one's going to sting a little bit, but I don't
Will
care.
tie.
I don't care about Giants.
I made a
ends.
point of stopping your matchup
Yes, you did.
like I did with Jason Witten, and it panned out again. Just start calling me the tight end whisperer.
I guess so.
Hashtag tight end whisperer.
I've called you worse.
It's true you have. You may be wondering at this point, you have this week's episode much earlier than usual. Yes, Brian and I wanted to make sure you have all our intel at your fingertips and plenty of time for those Thanksgiving Day games, which there are 3. So we're cutting the show a couple days early, which does affect a few things, including injury updates, forthcoming news, and such. But the research Brian and I do is no less thorough or intensive here in Week 12. Want you to know that as we go forward. All the matchups broken down as only we can do, grades on all the fantasy-relevant players, the pop quiz answering 3 of fantasy's toughest questions, the bargain bin picks, 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 pass catcher from both Brian and myself that chances are available now on your waiver wire. Grab them, plug them in, and expect a decent amount of production from. All that plus the flea flicker and much more, but we begin as we always do with some headlines of fantasy note. The Chicago Tribune reports quarterback Jay Cutler suffered a shoulder injury in Sunday's loss to the Giants, and the team are, quote, exploring whether or not it will end his season, Brian.
How convenient that just when Jay Cutler is being terrible every time now, he gets another magical injury.
Yeah, and I mean, this one could end it for him this season, leaving the Bears with what?
I think it's a career-ending injury myself.
You think it's going to be that?
I do. He's done. No one's going to play with fire anymore with this guy.
Is he mentally checked out, you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There were some reports that he lost a locker room and everything. It's like, yeah, absolutely he has.
Yeah. Bears tight end Zach Miller, some more bad news for that franchise. He's done for the season with a broken right foot, and terrible timing on this as he was one of the lone bright spots on the Bears offense.
Not many pass catchers left. They're either hurt or taking illegal substances.
Yeah, suspended like Alshon Jeffrey. Colts quarterback Andrew Luck in the league's concussion protocol. Looks like he's not going to be able to go during the Thanksgiving Day game, Brian. And that was kind of a shocker. Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, huge shocker. Definitely affects your Colts wide receivers, so you're going to want to pay attention in the matchup breakdown that I got this week.
Scott Tolzien.
Yeah.
Likely starting quarterback.
Well, thanks for ruining my question heading into the matchup because I was going to ask you to name the backup, so you just ruined it.
Well,
thanks.
I do my homework.
There goes my pop quiz.
Bengals wide receiver A.J. Green will miss, quote, a few weeks with a hamstring strain. There's some good news considering the initial reports were that he tore the hamstring, which would have ended his season.
Yeah, that was a lot of heartbreak. A lot of seasons got flushed down the toilet in that situation, which if you watched it didn't like he did anything.
Mm-mm.
And then you hear it's like, oh, he really was hurt. Oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty bad too. But, fortunately, he'll be back, probably in time for your fantasy playoff run, which is key. Running back Giovanni Bernard, on the other hand, out for the rest of the season with a torn ACL. I didn't even know that had happened. Did you?
No, I didn't. And then you kind of read the reports because I like to go through other people's teams and just kind of scout around and see the injury waivers there. And I seen that, and whoopsies, Hill just got a whole lot more valuable.
Yeah, it's, Jeremy Hill, who's been pretty inconsistent all year long. Now, he's going to be the workhorse guy. Granted, there is something named Rex Burkhead also lurking in the background for some carries and some touches. But, as far as I can tell, Rex Burkhead is a runner kind of like Jeremy Hill. So they're really going to be missing that, elusive pass-catching component to their backfield, which is unfortunate. And I think the Bengals are in big trouble. Seahawks running back C.J. Prosise suffered a scapula injury, and according to head coach Pete Carroll, will be, quote, out for a while. Best case scenario, he's back by NFL playoff time, which is well past your fantasy playoff time.
If Christine Michael was on the marketplace for one more week, he could have cashed in way more than he did last week by getting picked up by the Packers.
Isn't that something? 1 week, Christine Michael's the starting running back, and then he's usurped by C.J. Prosise, then released, and then C.J. Prosise, not even a week later, gets hurt, and Thomas Rawls all of a sudden is your guy.
Yeah, and it's just, wow, something in the water up there. Witch hunt.
Well, it's the curse of the beast mode. Nobody will ever live up to that.
Y'all got to work on your people skills.
I love that commercial. Bills running back LaShawn McCoy having a surgical procedure done on his injured thumb this week, but still expected to play this weekend. Wide receiver Robert Woods spotted on crutches following the team's loss on Sunday. He's got a knee injury, and boy, is there anybody left besides Percy Harvin?
Nope.
And, I know Rex Ryan had every intention of getting him involved, but he really hasn't been. He's been virtually invisible, but now he kind of has to do something.
Ain't got no choice now.
Eagles running back Ryan Matthews suffered a knee injury in Sunday's loss, and running back Darren Sproles also got banged up with a fractured rib. So what, Wendell Smallwood?
I watched him play. I watched him get hit. I watched him get thrown around. That is not a person I would want carrying the ball for me.
Chiefs running back Charkandrick West in the league's concussion protocol. Browns quarterback Cody Kessler left Sunday's game with a, quote, upper body injury. Josh McCown already named the starter for Week 12, and there goes the number 1 draft pick.
I was excited for them to join the 0-16 club with the Lions and the Bucks, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen anymore.
No, because Josh McCown's clearly the better quarterback. And, my take on this whole Browns quarterback situation is this. The minute they named Cody Kessler the starting quarterback when Josh McCown was healthy, what they were really going for was the number 1 overall pick in the draft next year. McCown's a better quarterback, clearly.
I spaced out there. I was staring into your beautiful eyes.
Why, thank you. It's nice to sit across the
for
table
them.
from you. Steelers placed wide receiver Marcus Wheaton on injured reserve. Jets head coach Todd Bowles has named Ryan Fitzpatrick the team's Week 12 starter. Woo! Ever since he shaved his beard, he's been garbage.
Oh, he's been that person who's just been sticking around one more year, and now I think he crapped out finally.
He shouldn't have shaved the beard.
Yeah.
Just saying. Cardinals head coach Bruce Get Off My Lawn Arians was hospitalized with chest pains following Sunday's loss to Minnesota. I don't know if you saw this or not, and I'm not trying to make light of this whatsoever. It's a very serious thing, but I watched his press conference. Did you see how red he was? He was as red as the windbreaker he was wearing.
He was not happy.
Well, clearly not happy, but you could tell very stressed out too, and he was beat red at that press conference.
Well, that's the life. Wish him well, but I think he was in the hospital once already this year. I'm pretty sure he was.
Interesting. I'll have to go back
I
and
think
check
week 2,
that.
week 3, early on.
Boy, if that's the case, maybe he'll take some more time off then, because that's pretty scary stuff.
Yeah.
Don't want to mess with that.
Well, they're not going to be in the playoffs, so he'll get rest here
That's
coming
true.
up.
Falcons running back Tevin Coleman returned to practice this week. Good news for him, bad news for Devontae Freeman owners. Packers running back Christine Michael, he may be ready for this week's game versus Philly, and boy, they could use him. And the Minnesota Vikings, interestingly, released running back Ronnie Hillman, who I thought should have been given a better shot there. But
yeah, he should have got more carries, but I guess AP's ready to go now.
I'm going to dive right into those matchups here momentarily, including the Thanksgiving 3. They are next. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. We're also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Friend us on Facebook. Like us there. Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football. On Twitter, at 515 Fantasy. Into the Thanksgiving Day matchups. The first of the 3 kick off at 11:30 Central. Brian, that is Minnesota-Detroit.
Gobble, gobble. Game of the week right here. Vikings at the Lions. Quarterback Sam Bradford, he's going to get a B. Bradford is statistically having a good year with 70% completion and a 6-to-1 touchdown ratio. Bad thing is it's only 12 touchdowns. I like his chances. The Lions are still giving up a lot of yards, but he needs his receivers to step up in a big way to have an impactful game. Running game, who knows what's going to happen there? I don't know who's starting. I don't know who's getting carries. But if you have a Minnesota running back, it's definitely worth starting, as Detroit tends to give up some juicy yards, especially with our linebackers struggling.
But not a lot of touchdowns.
Wide receiver Stephon Diggs, I'm going to give him a B. He got shut down against the Cardinals, and it may be another tough draw against Slay in the Lions secondary. I expect Diggs to move around, which Slay does not. He usually kind of sticks to one side of the field. So as long as they move Diggs around, those are going to be his opportunities to play ball. If they move him around, Bradford's going to connect. Thielen, however you...
Adam Thielen.
I cannot say his name.
Which was another big call of mine last week.
Well, you know what? I got it written right here. Was B+. He was a good call last week by Andy.
Thank you.
And it would be another good call this week, as the Lions are vulnerable outside of Slay. And with our linebackers being terrible on pass plays, it leaves much to be desired. He will have a good game. I'm not even going to try and say his name anymore. I just can't.
Thielen.
I can't do it.
The pride of Detroit Lakes, Minnesota.
Well, hey, welcome home, pal. He'll be right there for Thanksgiving. Tight end Kyle Rudolph, he's going to get a B+ here again. Lions typically give up good touchdowns to tight ends and will likely do so against the Pro Bowler in Kyle Rudolph. He averages a TD every other game. He didn't have one last week, so statistically speaking, he's due.
There's a pattern there.
Yeah, you betcha. On the Lions side of the ball, quarterback Matt Stafford, I'm going to give him a B+. And you're going like, oh, my God, here we go again. Look, Stafford has 4 touchdowns through 4 games. He's in a little bit of a slump, his midseason slump. The last time they played the Vikings, he had 2 of those touchdowns. Now, let me deviate to the magic of Thanksgiving. It's like the Charlie Brown
Great
Halloween.
Pumpkin.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. It's the Madden 6-legged turkey all over again.
That's
right
all
here.
he really wants is a leg off that thing.
Stafford is undeniably one of the greatest Thanksgiving miracles. He has always played well. He always hits 300 yards, and he always has 3 touchdowns on Thanksgiving.
Not happening this week, guaranteed. Because if it was, you'd be an A grade. Why is it a B+?
It's because, you know what, I'm trying to protect a reputation here.
Okay. I'm not willing to take a big risk and give him that A grade. Huh?
I would, but then people get mad at me, so I'm just going to be nice.
I'm not saying mad. I'm just saying you're crazy.
I will tell you, a lot of his passing yards are going to come in the running game from Theo Riddick, who's getting a B+ as well.
As a Vikings fan, I am worried about that.
Yes. The Lions' run game is completely gone. I think they had like 19 yards last week. That's because their run game has always been the short passes. And with a back like Theo Riddick, all he has to do is make one person miss, and then he's got 15 yards easy. Riddick had 80 total yards last week. I'm going to expect the same thing again. Fun little stat here that stinks is he only has 1 touchdown through the 8 games he's played in. He's due as well. Golden Tate's going to get a B-. Coming up missing for some odd reason against the Jag. He had his worst week since week number 4 last week. Marvin Jones Jr. is going to get a C+. Bench-worthy consideration the way teams have figured out to scheme against him. He has 53 yards in his last 3 games combined.
Yuck.
If he didn't have the start he did, he would have been on waivers for everybody. I think it's more the QB play recently, the midseason slump here that we always seem to go through. Offense is a little clunky right now. Bolden's going to get a C+, 5 touchdowns on the season, only has 300 yards. Desperation play at best. If you start him, you're hoping for one of those touchdowns. Tight end Eric Ebron, he's going to get a B. Had a big play that saved the game last week. His last 3 games have all been over 70 yards, so he is a confident play. He's able to get downfield and the whole package. If the Lions get in the red zone, he will be their main consideration.
Second of the Thanksgiving Throwdowns kicks off at 3:30 Central. That's Washington at Dallas. Start with the Redskins. Kirk Cousins, a B+. Dallas secondary, not healthy, and it has shown over the past few weeks. They're currently ranked 22nd in passing yards allowed per game at 264, have given up 16 passing scores on the season and only collected 4 INTs. Cousins coming off a huge Sunday night performance in Week 11, a great start in a game that should feature lots of scoring. Rob Kelly, a B grade. We all witnessed what he's done the past couple of weeks, rushing for nearly 100 yards against Minnesota's top 12 unit and 137 yards and 3 scores against Green Bay's top 6 defensive front. It's time to quit doubting him now, even as he gets yet another brutal matchup on paper this week against a Dallas defense that gives up 4.2 yards per carry, less than 100 yards to opposing runners, and a total of only 5 scores to the position on the season. Chris Thompson, I'm leaving on the bench. Jamison Crowder, a B+. Amazingly, he's fantasy's number 12 wide receiver in half PPR leagues. Just keeps chugging along, enjoying high target share and producing on a very consistent basis, hitting pay dirt in 4 of his last 5 games. Deshaun Jackson, a B-, found the end zone for just the second time all season last week, appears to be healthy again, which is a great thing going forward, particularly in plus matchups like this one. Pierre Garçon, a C grade. Don't chase last week's box score. Garçon, while still a viable part of the Redskins offense, is an afterthought following Crowder, Jackson, Reed, and Chris Thompson, who are all seeing targets. Jordan Reed, the B+, he's due for a touchdown. He's been shut out of the end zone since week 8, surprisingly. Over to the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, a B+. I've learned my lesson. Don't bet against Dak, who exceeded all my expectations for him in what appeared to be a very difficult matchup against the Ravens last week. Over 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes. I stand corrected. Don't overthink this. Dak is a QB1, even against a Washington defense that hasn't given up a ton of passing scores on the season. Reason for that, teams are scoring rushing touchdowns left and right against them. Ezekiel Elliott, an A grade, no need to expound on that. Des Bryant, a B+, another example of a guy I faded a bit last week against Baltimore's stifling defense. Bryant silenced all doubters with a strong 2-touchdown performance, should be treated as a wide receiver 1 no matter what going forward, as we discussed in length in last week's pop quiz. Cole Beasley, a B+, gets his share of looks from Prescott as well, finding the end zone himself in Week 11. Beasley's a fine flex play if you're in need of one this week. Jason Witten, a B-. The Skins are one of the 5 friendliest defenses against opposing tight ends, having allowed over 700 yards to the position on the air, a total of 5 touchdowns. Witten is in play. The third of those Thanksgiving matchups.
Real quick, do you think it's possible for a co-MVP, Dak and Zeke?
Actually, I do.
Okay.
Both rookies, absolutely.
Insane. Pittsburgh, Indianapolis. This one's going to go pretty quick here. I gave out a lot of A grades in the first one. Big Ben's going to get an A. Colts have the worst passing defense, which is great news for Big Ben owners who are looking for that little stat boost there. No need to get too in-depth. Le'Veon Bell, obvious. He's going to get an A. Has 1,000 combined yards, but is disappointing in the touchdown category with only 3 on the year. Colts give up 113 on the ground, so Bell had 25 or 28 carries in the first half last week, which is insane.
Yeah, well, he's the only game in town.
Antonio Brown, he's going to get an A, obviously. Antonio Brown set at 900 yards and 7 touchdowns. I can see him getting nothing because it's all going on the ground this week, but I would expect 100 and a touchdown. Could this be the game where he hits 200? He gets one a year. This could be it. Eli Rogers is going to get a B-. By virtue of getting balls, he should people getting all the balls, he should get some. Dropped a lot of passes last week, but it was windy, so I'm going to give him a pass. Rookie Sammy Coates is going to get a C. He, on the other hand, has 10 games, 21 catches. So he goes in these tiny little waves. Think about it. He has 2 catches. He's averaging 2 catches a game. And I would probably start Percy Harvin over Sammy Coates.
Aside from that 1 week where he was the number 1 scoring wide receiver in all of fantasy,
yeah,
he has ranked down in the 30s or lower every single week.
Yep.
So he's a pretender.
Jesse James, C-. The tight end spot is weird in the offense right now. James is sharing more time with Green, who drops a lot of passes. I mean, he's getting tons
He's
of
terrible.
targets.
I've been telling people, don't
Yeah.
pick him up. He sucks. He's not a good tight end.
Yeah, he
Sorry.
gets like 8 targets and catches 2 passes.
So far, I've been right on that.
On the Colts side of the ball, this one's yucky. Do you know what Scott Tolzien's stats are for the year?
Nope.
0. So bench, it's not going to happen. Luck's not going to clear concussion protocol. Just check Thursday morning just in case, but it's not going to happen.
Would they be better off with Curtis Painter under center?
Yeah, I
Or
think
Matt
so.
Hasselbeck?
Yeah, Hasselbeck. Yeah, absolutely.
Where's Hasselbeck when you need him?
Jeez Louise. Frank Gore's going to get a B+ by virtue of bad passing game. Father Time's going to get it going. Gore's a late round at best. He's good to go here. Everybody drops in a grade here. T.Y. Hilton's like a B- now just because of the quarterback play. You have to consider this. And if you have someone like Moncrief or Dorsett, you might want to consider starting somebody else on your roster if Tolzien is in fact making that start. I would still start T.Y. Hilton just because he's T.Y., but I'd watch out for everybody else, especially tight end position, Jack Doyle, Dwayne Allen. Why it may be juicy with Tolzien in there. These guys split time, so it's a dice roll on who's going to be the favorite.
I have team landing strip, I believe, in your league this week.
Yes, you do.
She has T.Y. Hilton.
She has
Thanks
T.Y.
to you.
Hilton.
And I'm cheering because Tolzien's going to be the quarterback. All right. My final matchup of this segment, Tennessee at Chicago. First, the Titans. Marcus Mariota, a B+. The Bears have proven time and time again they're a relatively formidable defense against the pass, particularly in terms of yardage allowed, where they rank 12th, along with allowing an average of 241 yards per game through the air. They've given up 15 passing touchdowns on the season, including 2 to Eli Manning last week, who threw for 227 yards in a win. No quarterback has been more bankable over the past month plus than Mariota, who's a fine start again this week. DeMarco Murray, an A-. Chicago allows only 3.7 yards per carry on the season, have given up a total of 8 rushing scores. Murray has been lights out against virtually any team he's been put up against, so I'm not betting against him here. I am surprised no Tennessee runners scored last week, though. That was a bit of a shock. Rashard Matthews, a B+. 6 receiving scores since week 5. Matthews has emerged as a true wide receiver 1 in the young and hungry Titans offense. Should continue to be plenty busy as Mariota keeps his hot streak alive. Yet another week in Chicago. Tajay Sharp, a B-. He found the end zone in his last 2 games, putting up 68 yards in both. Complimentary piece to be sure, and behind both Matthews and Walker in the pecking order, but has enough upside to consider him at a flex this week. Kendall Wright, a C grade. Wildly inconsistent target numbers has led to wildly inconsistent fantasy value. Too much risk here in my opinion, but hey, if you have a gut feeling, I guess you could go with it. Delaney Walker, an A-. They don't allow a ton of yards to opposing tight ends, but the Bears have given up a total of 4 touchdowns to the position on the season. Walker, as we know, one of the most heavily involved tight ends in the league, a virtual guarantee to produce week to week. Real quickly on the Bears side of the ball, Jay Cutler I'm not even going to bother with because I don't think he's going to play. Whoever his backup is, I don't care. Jordan Howard, a C+. Tennessee, a tough unit to run on, 4.1 yards per carry on the season. Only 6 rushing scores. Howard saw 46 offensive snaps to Jeremy Langford's 17, so it is his job, but I don't see a clear path to fantasy success this week, at least not on the ground. Langford, I'm leaving on the bench. Cameron Meredith, I'm going to give a C+ to because I think somebody's got to catch balls in that offense. Eddie Royal, I'll give a C grade to. It's kind of a dart throw there. Marquise Wilson on the bench, and Logan Paulson, your starting tight end. Remember him, the former Redskin? He's never caught more than 28 passes in any one season, has never surpassed 300 receiving yards in any one season, never scored more than 3 touchdowns as he did back in 2013. Can't count on him.
That's great.
More matchups coming your way next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, Iowa. You can also get the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Back into the matchups, Brian Eichenberry, your first, Jacksonville Buffalo.
Oh, I got to go first twice.
Well, that's because we both had 2 matchups in the first matchup segment. There you go.
Cute. Jacksonville Buffalo.
I've been called worse.
Bortles going to get the B-. Shoulder issue could limit his production this week, so it is something to keep an eye on as the holiday week continues through. Buffalo hasn't been great in the turnover area the last couple of weeks, excluding last week's 2-pick game. So don't get too
they've
excited.
actually been one of the more exciting defenses in terms of fantasy production. Like, you could count on the Buffalo Bills of all teams.
Yeah. So let's expect Bortles to push short passes and outside runs to advance the ball this week. this shoulder issue kind of scares me as a quarterback.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He's going to ditch a couple of balls instead of taking a hit and getting pushed down.
It's
all
not
that
like
stuff.
he's been a great, had a great
He's not
arm all
great
season.
either. Yeah. Running back Chris Ivory is someone I do like a little bit here. I'm going to give him a B. Ivory is the back of choice for me on the team, but I don't really like any running backs here in Buffalo that have to run in between the tackles. He also had 37 yards on 17 carries against the Lions, a soft Lions defense, and the Bills have a lot bigger hombres on the interior. TJ Yeldon's going to get a D. He had 4 carries last week. He has all but given up his starting role. Allen Robinson's going to get a B, over 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. Yeldon is showing signs of growth, but fantasy owners have already been scorned too much. The Bills have the 11th best pass defense, so they will be pressing and forcing Robinson off his routes. At wide receiver, Allen Hurns, C+, 402. There are far better options than risking to start on Hurns. If you have not cut and run from him, you should already be doing so a long time ago, but you need to do it now. He has 2 games over 75 yards the entire season, and he has 6 games under 50 yards.
What a disappointment.
Wow.
Considering he scored double-digit touchdowns last season, was borderline double-digit the year before that.
I drafted him in the 3rd round, I believe.
I've had him since his rookie season on a 3-year deal, on a 3-year contract, and this year has just been awful. And now it's easy to see Marquise Lee is the guy to own there.
Yeah.
Next to Allen Robinson.
Yep. Well, and it's coming up here in just 1 second.
Right.
Marquise Lee is going to get a C. If you have Hurns, drop him and grab Lee, who has 100 more yards than Hurns and should be the number 2 receiver next year ahead of Hurns on the depth chart. Tight end Julius Thomas, Mercedes Lewis, same situation as the Colts tight ends. It's too risky to start either one because you never know what's going to happen.
Actually, I think Lewis is on IR now, so.
What?
I think I read somewhere that he's on IR.
Well,
so.
I didn't hear that in the headlines.
Right, but that's because nobody's starting Mercedes Lewis. I didn't want to waste anybody's time.
Well, all right, fine then. Moving on. Quarterback Tyrod Taylor of the Buffalo Bills is getting a C-. I am moving on from Tyrod at this point. He was a viable option, but now that Percy Harvin is your de facto number 1 wide receiver and the Jaguars are a top 5 pass defense, don't get cute. Don't think you can squeeze some extra points out of him. Don't even just move on. LaShawn McCoy is going to get a B+. Someone who's going to get the majority of the offense, either rushing or catching passes, will be McCoy. I expect a pretty savage game here as the Jags give up 113 yards per game. Percy Harvin, well, you heard he's your new number 1 receiver at this point. I am out on every single Buffalo wide receiver at this point. There's no point, whether it's Salas, Clay, I don't even know who's left, really. In the wide receiver category. So just kind of move on from any Buffalo Bills player except for LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah, that's good advice right there.
That is the end of the matchup right there.
Cincinnati at Baltimore. On the Bengals side, Andy Dalton, a C+. Lost both A.J. Green and Giovanni Bernard last week, and now gets to face one of the league's toughest defenses in their house in an important divisional game. Truth be told, I really hate Dalton this week, but I'm giving him a barely startable grade because of his scrambling ability. Jeremy Hill, a C grade. Desperation play only. Hill's between the tackles bruising style will be met by a nasty front 7 that chances are won't let Hill past the first level of defenders often. Of course, he's all the Bengals have left, so there's that. Brandon LaFell, a B-. We'll see an uptick in targets with Green out of the action. Trouble is, I don't have a lot of faith in his game, which is nothing special, not to mention an incredibly difficult matchup here on the road. Tyler Boyd, a C+. He hit pay dirt for the first time as a pro last week, grabbing 6 of 8 targets for a team-high 54 yards in addition to the touchdown. It is likely that Boyd becomes the greatest benefactor from the loss of Green and is certainly the bigger threat to reach the end zone of the Bengals wide receiver core. Tyler Eifert, a C+. The Ravens are an absolutely brutal matchup for opposing tight ends, ranking number 2 in the league against the position in terms of yardage, scores, and fantasy points per game. And over to the Ravens. Joe Flacco, a B+. Cincy are a very middle-of-the-road pass defense, allowing an average of 259 yards per game through the air, 19 passing touchdowns on the season, 9 INTs collected over their first 10 games. Flacco has been the model of mediocrity overall on the year, but things are looking up following a solid outing against Cleveland in Week 10 and a respectable performance last week against the Cowboys on the road. Terrence West, a B+. The Bengals rank 24th in yardage allowed per game to opposing backs. They've given up 7 rushing scores on the season, slightly less than 1 per week on average. West will continue to yield snaps and touches to the rookie Dixon, but remains the primary back and should see enough volume in this one to be a worthwhile flex. Kenneth Dixon is a C grade, seeing increased field time and opportunity in the past couple of weeks. Will likely continue to eat into West's production going forward because I think they really want to get him going.
Yep.
Steve Smith, a B+. One of the league's true Iron Men, Smith has found the end zone in his last 2 games, produces fantasy goodness on a consistent basis when he's healthy, and those 3 words are very key.
When he's healthy. Mike
Mike Wallace, a B-. He regressed some in the past 2 contests following 2 100-plus yard performances in Week 7 and 9. Still getting targeted a lot, including a team-high 10 last week, but hasn't been the most consistent scoring threat we thought he was shaping up to be earlier this season. Dennis Pitta, a C grade. Chances are you can find a better option on the waiver wire. He's kind of an afterthought in this Ravens offense.
Yeah, Mike Wallace, thing is, if he could break tackles, he'd be a all-star at this point.
I want to know where this Mike Wallace was last year when he was a Viking.
Man. Arizona at Atlanta. Quarterback Carson Palmer is going to get a B+. I think this is his bounce-back game. Facing a 30th worst defense, if he can't get it done here, it's over for Palmer. He has to win this one for Arians. He's just has to do this feel-good win. He didn't realize that Palmer has 13 touchdowns and 10 interceptions on the year. I did not realize his numbers were that bad, but they are. But I think this is his touchdown-heavy game here. Hopefully all to wide receivers. Running back David Johnson's going to get B+. Obviously, killer grade here. If you have him, start him regardless. He's the boss for a reason. Larry Fitzgerald, he's going to get a B. Fitz, on the other hand, still manages to make insane catches and always willing to get up there and go for it. So it's all up to Palmer. If he's playing good, Fitz is going to have a lights-out game. Steady point total, 8 or 10 per game He's coming down off that killer start he had at the beginning of the season where it was like 3 games, 5 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. He was leading the league. Settled down quite a bit. Catching 7 balls a game still, so that's pretty great. Michael Floyd's going to get a C. He has increased his production recently, which is a very nice surprise. We all thought it was J.J. Nelson, but Floyd is averaging over 14 yards per catch and averages more per catch than Fitz does, believe it or not. J.J. Nelson, since I didn't mention him, is going to get a C. He hasn't done much in the last 2 games. He has 11 targets, 3 catches, and 29 yards.
I straight up bench. I mean, no way. He's a C grade's a start. That's,
Well, I mean, I have to give some grade.
Nah, bench.
Nah. So yeah, he's not my cup of tea, especially in a fantasy football playoff race. And the tight end here, it's just, man, you go through their depth chart and it's one different person every week.
I know. You saw Darren Fells reach the end zone last week against the Vikings, but that was such a fluky thing. Like that's clearly the outlier. That's not the usual.
Yeah, don't get all bent out of shape on those kind of plays. Quarterback Matt Ryan, he's going to get a B here. Ryan is at home and should be able to produce, even though he now faces the number 1 pass defense in the league. Last time I called his slump was against the Eagles on the road. I like his home stand here against the Cards on their heels. He's going to make some good decisions. Devonta Freeman, I wanted to give him a high grade, but Coleman practicing, so I'm going to give them both back to Bs. They're both going to start splitting time again. It's all how it's going to go. Especially with Freeman, the last 3 games, he's only had 160 yards over those last 3, and the Cards defense is pretty dang good at this point.
Yeah, they're still very solid.
Yeah, so both those guys are going to get split grades on a B. Julio Jones, B+. He's going to get it doubled up pretty regularly, but he's going to get 15 targets a game like he always does. So by sheer volume, he's going to catch half of those. Mohamed Sanu is going to get a B-. Sneaky play, I can see a situation where the Cards just make Matt Ryan beat him with Sanu and just eliminate Julio Jones from there. Tyler Gabriel, C+, under the radar guy who's going to have an impact. He averages 17 yards per catch, has 2 touchdowns, so don't be stunned if he pops up on the stat sheet. And no tight end of value anymore with Tammy out.
Yeah, I think Julio Jones probably going to see a lot of Patrick Peterson this week. Now, you didn't hear Stephon Diggs' name called at all much last week because Patrick Peterson had him in shadow coverage, and I think Julio Jones has his work cut out for him this week for sure.
But Julio Jones is also like 6'5" and can jump 10 feet.
Well, Peterson's a pretty big dude. I think he's like 6'1", but, yeah. No, Julio's not 6'5". He's like 6'2" or something.
I'm giving Julio the nod here. He's not going to get shut out.
All right, more matchups still to come. You'll hear them next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. The 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on 1350 a.m. ESPN Radio, locally in Des Moines, Iowa. You can also get this show on iTunes, Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Again, a quick reminder, we're cutting this show a couple days earlier than usual. That hasn't affected how we've broken down our matchups as we usually do. The intel is all the same, but some of the updates that we normally get later on in the week, we're not able to get because we want to get this in your hands prior to all the Thanksgiving games. So just keep all of that in mind as we break down these matchups. And we're back into it with the Giants and the Cleveland Browns. We'll start with those Giants. Eli Manning, an A grade. The Browns have allowed the third most passing yards, an average of 275 per game, the most passing touchdowns on the season at 25. Since the Giants' running game sucks as badly as it does, worst in the league, no question Eli will take a lot of the responsibility on his shoulders this weekend. Should finish with a very strong fantasy day. Rashad Jennings, a B-, 3.2 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns on the season. Hooray, Jennings. Sorry, that's about as excited as I can get about his potential in your starting lineup, even against a defense that ranks 31st in yards allowed to opposing runners and has given up 12 touchdowns this season. You'd think I'd be more excited, but I'm not. Paul Perkins, a C grade, about as boring as Jennings, although he may get a pity score if this one gets out of hand. Odell Beckham, an A grade, be not afraid, let the OBJ enlighten you.
Aha.
When I was writing this matchup up, it was very late, and I started getting a little weird. So, be not afraid, let the OBJ enlighten you. Oh. Sterling Shepard, a B grade. I like the rookie in this matchup, where he'll likely see a lot of a guy with the last name Body Calhoun, who is not very good. 286 yards per game on average to spread among the Giants' pass catchers. Yeah, I think he gets a chunk of those here. Victor Cruz, though, I'm leaving on the bench. Only 2 targets in Week 11. He's kind of a non-factor. Will Tye, my boy. He's my new Gary Barnidge.
Blech.
B- grade this week. The Browns are the most fruitful defense for opposing tight ends in the league. I think Tye can follow up last week's score with another in this matchup. Yep, I'm calling the shot again. 2 weeks in a row.
For the fence, huh?
If he scores again, Brian, I am the tight end whisperer.
Whoa. That's brave.
Over to the Browns. Josh McCown, he's the starter. B-. Giants defense gave up 252, 1-1 to Jay Cutler last week. Andy Dalton, 204, 1-1 the week before. Carson Wentz, 364, 0-2 before that. And Case Keenum, 291, 1-4 before that. As you can tell, this Giants secondary may give up some yardage, but they're pretty tough on touchdowns, and they're very opportunistic, intercepting more passes on the season than touchdowns that they've given up via the air. Isaiah Crowell, a C grade. By the way, the Giants are a top 5 unit against the run. Crowell has been mediocre at best as of late anyway, so you're probably not considering him in your starting lineup. Duke Johnson, put him on your bench. Virtually invisible, which confuses me. Why not give him some early down work?
I agree.
Some carries. What have the Browns got to lose? Oh, the first
pick.
overall pick in next year's draft. Right. I think we've figured the Browns out. We really have.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Terrell Pryor, a B-. We'll get a face full of Janoris Jenkins on Sunday, one of the league's best cover corners. Good luck with that, my friend. Opposing number ones have not fared well, generally speaking, against the Giants, but hey, anything can happen and will happen in garbage time, Brian. Corey Coleman, a C grade, not very stoked about this matchup either. He'll probably see Prince Amukamara, who is solid. Andrew Hawkins, I'm leaving on the bench. Why did I even mention him? Gary Barnidge, a C+. Somebody's got to catch the ball. Why not Barnidge? Coming off a game in which he actually learned what his end zone looks like this season. P.S. It's orange and green. Gary probably won't have a great game against the Giants, who typically are very good against the position.
All right, let's do it. The Rams at the Saints. Quarterback Jared Goff made his awesome debut last week with 134 yards, period. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Just leave him on the bench. There's no reason to get involved in this mess. Even though it is the Saints defense, I don't care to leave it alone. Todd Gurley, B, he had a decent game last week, but the Saints have a middle-of-the-road run defense and are at home. They're going to have to be passing. They have not used Gurley in the right way. I don't expect them to do now. They're going to be blitzing 24/7, so Gurley's going to get a lot of contact behind the line of scrimmage quite often.
Speaking of guys that finally saw their end zone, last week.
Yeah.
Gary Barnage, I just made a joke about that, but Gurley, same thing.
Gurley
like,
did
hey, I
too.
know what my end zone looks like
Yeah,
now.
look at this. I got paid. Yay. Well, the same story with the Rams receivers here. Britt's going to get a B, Austin C, and tight end Kendricks is going to get a C minus. It's always the same thing week in, week out. You never know who, what, where, why, when, or how. What I do know is their quarterback only had 134 yards last week, so don't expect anything.
It's really too bad. Britt, Quick, Austin, Gurley in the backfield. I mean, this should be a pretty dynamite team, but they just have crap quarterbacks.
Yep.
I mean, Kessler was horrible. Or not Kessler, Keenum. Followed by now Goff, who's, cutting his teeth as a rookie. He's not an instant success like Dak, but, it's just unfortunate because there's actually some talent in on that Rams team.
Who was it before? After
Keenum?
Bradford. Yeah, after Bradford.
That would have been, oh boy. I'd have to think about this. I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. Wasn't anybody good?
Yeah, nobody we talked about on the show. On the Saints side of the ball, quarterback Drew Brees is going to get a B, facing a good Rams defense is currently ranked 6th against the pass, and Brees has been underperforming recently. Guys like Brees don't stay down too long. I'll settle for 250 and 2 out of him this week. Mark Ingram, he's got that concussion. He's in the protocol, so watch it closely. Put him in your here's a little pro tip for you. Put him, if he's in your lineup, put him in your flex spot. Do not leave him in the running back spot. You need to be able to flex him out and have the option to put in a wide receiver and his spot. So put him in your flex. That way, just in case you move him around, you don't get him locked into a spot and maybe face a penalty. Hint. If Ingram
only your league does that.
Well, hey,
Brian.
you know what? That's why we prevent people from, sacking seasons.
Crazy damn thing.
If Ingram is out, Hightower just went through the roof. He has shown he is capable, and the Rams give up 100 on the ground. If he has it all to himself, it's going to be a good bringo, you dang dinguses. If that's an inside joke, so if you missed it, you're not cool enough.
No idea what that means.
Good. Well, you should do your homework, sir.
Telling
Receiver,
me to do my homework.
Wide receiver Brandon Cooks is going to get a B. His production obviously linked to Breeze. I expect him to get a decent share of the action being the number one. He may get half of Breeze's production this week as he's averaging 5 catches a game. Willie Snead, on the other hand, is going to get a C. Snead is a tough call, but he isn't fumbling like Michael Thomas, which is helping, but it's not saving his game. He has 504 touchdowns through 9 games, so buyer beware here. Wide receiver Michael Thomas is going to get a B-. I think he's learned his lessons from those fumbling woes. Typically an issue for rookies, so I give him a pass. He caught all 5 of his targets last week with moderate yardage, but Breeze wasn't playing great, so I don't hold him too much against that. Colby Fleener's going to get a C. Can't start him with any kind of confidence. He's always under 50 yards, maybe with a touchdown. If he's not running wide receiver routes, he's no good.
Next, I've got the barn burner that is San Fran at Miami. When the Niners have the ball, Colin Kaepernick, your B grade here. Miami possesses a top 10 defense against the pass, giving up an average of only 225 per game. They've allowed 14 scores through the air this season while intercepting 9 enemy passes. They are also very active on the defensive front, pressuring opposing passers into rash decisions or sacks. Kaepernick, though, he's an escape artist, and I see him scrambling a lot more in this matchup, which could lead to solid rushing numbers. I don't see big passing numbers, however. Carlos Hyde, a B+. The Dolphins give up the 3rd most yards to opposing backs through the first 11 weeks of the season. They've allowed only 8 running back scores on the year, but Hyde is a workhorse that should see enough work to turn in triple-digit combo yards, even if he doesn't hit pay dirt. Jeremy Curley, a C+. He was shut out completely by the Patriots last week. Should bounce back against a Miami secondary that struggles against speedy slot types. Quentin Patton, I'm leaving on the bench. Vance McDonald, the tight end, a C+, led the team in targets, yards, and scored a touchdown in Week 11. The Dolphins are an even more tight end friendly team than the Patriots are, giving up an average of roughly 8 fantasy points per game to the position, allowing a total of 4 tight end scores on the year. Now to the Dolphins. Ryan Tannehill, a B grade. Despite the historically bad Niners defense in terms of stopping the ground game, teams are also having a great deal of success via the air. San Fran has given up 23 passing scores on the season. Tannehill should have a great deal of success no matter how heavy the workload may end up being for running back Ajayi, who gets an A grade. Make no mistake, this is the best matchup a runner can ask for. Ajayi should have no trouble reaching triple digits and scoring at least one against the league's worst run defense by a mile. Jarvis Landry, a B grade, appeared to have gotten banged up near the end of last week's game, but was back on the field shortly after limping off. It is a situation worth keeping an eye on because Dolphins' primary pass catchers should have a very solid fantasy day against a very mediocre Niners defense. Landry, typically the volume guy, but not necessarily Miami's best chance at a touchdown. Great PPR play if he is active this week. Devontae Parker, a C+. I like him. He's 18 targets over his last 2 games, followed up a 100-plus yard performance in Week 10 with his first touchdown since Week 3 in Week 11. The Rams' secondary, more formidable than the one he'll face this weekend, so I kind of like him. Kenny Stills, just kind of a home run play, so a C grade, and Deion Sims is on the bench. So that's that. Everybody's favorite segment, the Pop Quiz, 3 of fantasy's toughest questions to be answered by Brian next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday from 11 to 1 on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. We're also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Wherever you've found us or however you've found us, Brian and I appreciate it very, very much. The fact that you're still listening at this point of the season means you have a legitimate shot at the playoffs. Some of you have already written your ticket. Congratulations. Others, still to come.
Maybe they like the sound, the soothing sounds of our voices.
It could be. Highly doubtful.
Highly doubtful.
It could be that we just entertain them.
That could be.
You know, people sometimes spend a lot of time in their car.
We get into a lot of giggle fits every now and then.
Yeah, and part of it is my gassy dog, who, again, has completely stunk up the joint. Thanks a lot, Ollie. In case you're interested, we are on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football. Give us a like. Hit us up anytime you need anything. We do respond to everything we get, and that includes Twitter, at 515 Fantasy. If you want to hit us up individually, that's fine, too. I'm at Andy Hall Radio. He is at Ike FFB. That's IKEFFB. Again, I'll throw it out there. For those of you that get the show via iTunes, we would greatly appreciate a rate and review of the show. It really helps out our visibility. Makes it easier to find our show. Granted, you might not want your league mates to find us, and that's fine. But there are people all over the world that need help, and we would like to help them.
Absolutely. It's a fun thing to kind of look at, where people play fantasy football. You've got South America, you've got Australia, all this stuff. You don't think about that too much, but other people dig this, and it's accessible, and it's happening, folks.
I had a very, very extensive conversation with a guy late last night who I believe it was South America, and we were having a conversation back and forth about his fantasy squad on Twitter. I love it.
Insane,
fantasy football.
right?
Well, it binds the world together like music does, Brian.
And food.
And food. Well, you're right about that, too. And we will talk food in the flea flicker.
Ooh.
Promise. But first, we must get through this. The Pop Quiz, 3 of fantasy's toughest questions. Brian has absolutely no idea what I'm about to ask him. Couldn't have given him any prep time whatsoever. He will answer off the top of that brilliant fantasy mind of his. Probably get it wrong. No matter what he answers, I will come back with the correct answer afterwards, so all will not be lost here. But Brian, he does surprise us from time to time. So let's see how you do with these 3, Brian. Are you ready?
Ready.
Question number 1. There's now at least a sliver of clarity of how that Patriots backfield is going to shake out going forward. Rest of the season, who would you rather own? James White or Deion Lewis?
Deion Lewis. I think he's just getting warmed up right now. Belichick's not the one to really just drop him in and let him go. He's just going to kind of ease him back in. He had some good flashes, so did James White, but I like Deion Lewis going forward.
Yeah, the answer is Deion Lewis. James White's skill set entails his prowess as a pass catcher, nothing more. Lewis, on the other hand, showed promise as a pass catcher and a ball carrier in the running game before getting hurt last season. In 7 games, he ran 49 times for 234 yards. That's a 4.8 yards per carry average, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He also caught 36 passes for 388 yards. That's a 10.8 yards per catch average with 2 touchdowns via the air. Snap counts for Blunt, White, and Lewis in Week 11 were 35, 24, and 21 respectively. I expect Lewis to outsnap White starting this week and perhaps even eat into Blunt's rushing attempts before the season is over. I like that answer, Brian.
Yay.
Deion Lewis, 1 for 1. Question number 2. There's a chance Adrian Peterson may return in time for the fantasy playoffs. He's available on the waiver wire in your redraft league. Is he worth grabbing?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? I can't think of a better reason to say yes. I mean, you have the roster space full of backups. AP is going to be instantly inserted as a starter. The offensive line does have issues, but if AP can be AP, as we've seen him come back from big injuries, absolutely beat someone to the punch, pick him up a week early.
Yep, the answer is yes. The Vikings are playoff relevant and just released backup Ronnie Hillman following Sunday's win over Arizona. I don't have any concrete evidence to back this up, but I can't imagine the team would release a player at a position in which they only have 2 on the active roster unless they had knowledge of Peterson's imminent return. Time will tell, certainly, but hey, if he's out there and you can spare that bench spot, you absolutely grab a former MVP. You're 2 for 2.
Ruh-roh. I sense a trick question coming on.
Pressure's on now, pal. Question number 3. There's a chance Sammy Watkins may return in time for the fantasy playoffs. He's available on the waiver wire in your redraft league. Is he worth grabbing?
Yeah, because by virtue of him being the only person worthy of catching a ball in Buffalo, they've still got a good run game support that'll help pull some extra coverage down to the line of scrimmage, giving Watkins the ability to make leaping grabs. So, yeah, absolutely.
You're not worried about that foot at all, huh?
You just said, is he worth picking up? You didn't say, is he worth being your wide receiver 1?
No, I didn't. I just said, he's worth that bench spot to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
The answer is yes. Especially now that Robert Woods is banged up, the rumor is Watkins could be closer to returning to action. With wide receivers at a premium on the wire, why wouldn't you grab him now, especially in dynasty formats, but even for everyone else? And the question was in regards to redrafts. Specifically, if you are playoff bound, the time is now before everyone else hears that he'll be coming back. Brian, for the second time this season,
Dingy.
3 out of 3. Either I didn't come up with very good questions or you just are having a good night.
Oh, I'd like to sleep. That'd be a really good night.
I bet it would. Do you want some
Yeah.
bonus pop quiz questions?
Sure.
These are fun.
Okay.
Bonus pop quiz question.
True.
Thanksgiving Day, what's on your plate?
Probably just like a pizza because I'm not doing anything on Thanksgiving Day. It's Friday is when we'll actually kind of be having Thanksgiving. So, boom, trick question. It'll be a Jack's Pizza, which were on sale at Menards a while back for like $1.79.
Who makes the greatest frozen pizza?
Bang for your buck or like greatest
Your favorite
frozen
frozen pizza?
It's the California Pizza Kitchen. They're at Target. They're like $6, but they have like barbecue chicken, and it's actually really good.
The correct answer to that question is Haggie's, a Minnesota company,
Oh,
makes the greatest
duh.
frozen pizzas. Another Minnesota company, Lots of Matza, also very solid.
I've heard of lots of matzahs before.
And I get those at Fairway, and those are like $8 a piece, so they're pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And actually, Haggie's, come to think of it, are like $8.99 retail up in Minnesota, but very, very good nonetheless. How about a bonus pop quiz question?
Bonus. You like pizza?
So many people that listen to me here locally in central Iowa on ESPN Radio know that I'm a radio host on a different radio station. I work at a rock station called Laser 103.3, and I've worked there since the year 2000, so I'm a long timer. I've worked in this market for a very long time. And I like to have fun and have these sort of like conversations every once in a while with my listeners where I have them call in, and then I have them like fighting one another back and forth. And I just sort of facilitate the whole thing. So I kind of like to pick fights, but not me personally. Like I like to let them pick the fights.
You like to mix the oil in the water.
The thing I did today was I basically called anybody who doesn't let their foods touch on their plate weirdos.
That's me.
You're a weirdo?
I don't mix my food.
You are so weird. Thanksgiving is like a tailor-made holiday for mixing everything.
I do not mix my food. So it's
so weird.
So
Are you OCD?
no. So funny thing.
I'm not being facetious about that.
No,
It's a
I
real
just
like
don't
disorder.
mix-
I get
I
that,
like to enjoy the individual flavors. So when
So one
I
at a
was-
time? Is that
Yeah,
you, really?
one at a time.
Okay, well I do that with fast food. Like I eat my fries first, but I do that because I don't want them to get cold.
No, on a dinner plate, I will eat one thing at a time until it's gone. So when I
Weird.
was seeing my wife, the first time we had dinner with her parents, that was the one thing her mom asked, "What is he doing?" And I ate this food first, then I move to this food, then I move to that food, and then I move to that one. I don't mix and match flavors. I don't get all growly. Now, with the exception of football food on Sundays. That is just a giant hodgepodge of disgusting mess.
I'm about to destroy everything you just said, and you're going to feel like a weirdo after I tell you this.
Ooh, I like it.
One of your favorite snacks is what? Like snacky foods just sitting in front of the
Corn
tube?
nuts.
No. Something you
Sunflower
prepare.
seeds.
Something you prepare on a plate. Come on, man. What do you still owe me after all these years?
Oh, nachos.
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 Chips on a plate with cheese melted over them,
But that's
and
how the dish
sometimes
is
some other
designed.
crap put on it.
But that's how
You're
it's
mixing
designed.
stuff is my point, Brian. You're a
But that's how
weirdo.
But that's designed to be like that.
Okay.
It's designed to be
So
like
is
that.
Thanksgiving platters.
And I'm telling you, when you come over and we have nachos, I guarantee you, anybody out there listening who's had my nachos will be like, that was the greatest nachos I've ever had.
We've been
I
talking
have
about this
yeah,
since
years.
2008.
Yeah.
So 8 years plus. When Metallica last came
Yeah.
to Des Moines was 2008. It was October, late October.
Yes, it was.
And that was the last time. And you owed me a plate of nachos at that
It
point.
will be
We
the
still
best
haven't
nachos.
collected the damn nachos, Brian. Boy, this is not at all how I expected this pop quiz segment to end up. But damn it, that was
Rowdy.
fun. Yeah, it really was.
Rowdy.
You're a weirdo, though. For real.
Indeed.
Come on. I mean, I put gravy on everything. Turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, cranberries, everything. And then, like, I mix them together because they all go
First
together.
off, I hate cranberries.
Corn inside the mashed potatoes and then mixed with
Nope.
the turkey. And, like, oh,
Unacceptable.
it's so good. All right.
Unacceptable.
I'm so hungry. All right. More matchups still to come. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. Also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Brian Eikenberry and me, Andy Hall, appreciate you listening very, very much. Thank you. Still plenty to come, including more matchups, and we'll of course, wrap up this week's show, as we always do, with the bargain bin picks. One quarterback, one running back, one receiver each. That chances are available right now on your waiver wire. Plug them in. Expect a decent amount of fantasy production from. And then, of course, the always unpredictable but usually fun 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker. That's how the show will end. But our next segment of matchups begins with young Brian.
And I hate it when you give me the Chargers. I hate grading the Chargers. They are like my least favorite team to grade. So,
Sorry.
Chargers at the Texans. Phillip Rivers is going to get a B-. Even though Phillip Rivers leads the fourth best passing attack in the league, which is just insane because you wouldn't think that off the top of your head. He has 20 touchdowns. He has a 2-to-1 ratio, which isn't great, but now he's going up against a top-ranked pass defense, so it's a tough call. I would err on the side of caution as I believe it's going to be a bad week for Rivers, even coming off the bye week. Melvin Gordon, on the other hand, is going to get a B+. Texans give up over 120 on the ground. And Melvin Gordon has 1,180 total yards and 11 touchdowns combined.
It's really an unbelievable
Wow.
season. He's in the running for MVP, considering he didn't score once in his rookie campaign.
Yeah, but the Chargers are going, maybe.
I'm just saying,
Maybe.
this is a pretty monumental season
But
for him.
here's a very frustrating thing. MVPs always go to the quarterback now, and it sucks.
It's true, yeah, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, hell, a defensive player should be up for MVP, honestly.
Yeah, I still think Dak should be the MVP.
Right now, I think I would maybe
How could it
agree
not
with
be?
that.
A rookie quarterback has led
I know.
the
He's
Cowboys
got some
to
great
its
weapons
best
there.
start ever.
I know, but it's that running back, too. It's Ezekiel Elliott. Man, that's tough. I don't know.
I don't know.
Continue.
Radio silence. Wide receiver Travis Benjamin's going to get a B-. Questionable, so watch the report going through to Friday and Saturday. But either way, he hasn't been great. 503 touchdowns in his 9 games. Dontrell Inman, who's my pick here, B+. He picks up the slack when needed, often becomes the number 3 receiving option behind the running back and tight end positions. But I like Inman. He's got heart. That's what it takes. What are you looking at me all crazy for?
Are you through wide receivers yet or not?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Did you mention Tyrell Williams or not?
Well, I said pretty much it. I give him a C.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. That make you feel better?
Yeah, well, I was going to say Travis Benjamin hasn't played for a couple of weeks. So.
No, well, that's why he's still questionable, so watch the report.
I heard that part.
Okay, well,
I couldn't remember if you mentioned Williams or not.
No, you just had this weird
I
look
own
on
Williams
your
in some
face.
places. I want to know what you think of Williams this
Jeez.
week. Hey,
well, not much.
forgive me
because
for being selfish.
Not much. I don't think it's going to be an Inman and a split tight end set this week here. With
Houston's a really good pass defense.
Yes, they
and they
are.
have the number
Wicked.
1 rated cover corner, A.J. Bouye, on
Bakar
roster.
cut him up for 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, well.
So who knows? Gates and Henry both going to get a seed. They're tough to start. Gates gets the nod here because he hasn't got that touchdown record yet, and they're running out of time, so I expect him to get force-fed a couple of touchdowns here. On the Texans side of the ball, Brock Osweiler, he's going to get a B. We all know what he is at this point, and what he isn't as advertised. He's not that great. He's going against the Chargers' 28th ranked pass defense. I'm not overly excited about his chances, but there is hope. He wasn't looking great against the Raiders, so there's no reason to think he'll do the same here either. Running back Lamar Miller is going to get a B as well. Chargers make up for the front where they lack in the back. Like that? You had the
it's
rhyme
almost
last
like
week.
I think you basically just described a mullet.
Maybe.
Party in the business in the front, party in the back.
Too legit to quit,
you
my
have
friend. Chargers are stingy with 85 yards rushing per game. And Lamar Miller has 840 with 3 total touchdowns. You pile on the good stuff here. Now he's got 4 here from the Monday night game. So he should have a decent day. I would expect his production to come more from receiving than rushing, though. Wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins is going to get a B. Massive disappointment. Many point to the quarterback here. I share the blame across the board. He's averaging only 10 yards per catch, so that means he's getting tackled early, and he's not getting that separation, not a lot of yards after contact. So steady as you go. He's only gone for 70 yards or more twice this season and should only be considered a low-end wide receiver 2 at this point. Will Fuller's going to get a C, same situation. Fuller has been bust or injured after week number 2. Teams are figuring out the Texans, and it's killing any reliable production out of anybody, including C.J. Fedorowicz. He's going to get a B this week, though. He has 305 and 3 touchdowns through 9 games played. That's just over 30 yards per game. So settle down, Iowa fans. It's QB's fault.
Seattle at Tampa Bay versus the Seahawks. Russell Wilson an A grade this week. The Bucs are having issues creating pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Wilson is another week healthier, coming off a 272-yard, 1-touchdown performance against the Eagles, who are one of the league's most blitz-happy teams. All signs point to a big week for the Seahawks passing game in general, facing a Bucs secondary ranked 24th in yardage allowed, a secondary that has given up 20 passing scores on the season and are susceptible to quarterbacks that can run. Even the Chiefs' Alex Smith ran one in last week against them. Thomas Rawls a B grade. Another reason I believe Wilson is in for a big week here is the emergence of a now healthy Thomas Rawls, who ran extremely hard in his return to the field last week, piling up 88 combo yards against the Eagles in Week 11. The Bucs allow nearly 115 rushing yards per game and about 1 rushing score on average. Now that Prozice is injured, Rawls is the only game in town and should have a fantastic day against a below-average defense. Doug Baldwin an A-. He's been incredibly consistent, following up a 3-touchdown performance in Week 10 with his second 100-plus yard performance in Week 11. Roll him out against one of the league's worst secondaries this week. Jermaine Kearse a C+. He led the team in targets last week, but remains more of a possession guy with PPR potential rather than a real scoring threat. Tyler Lockett, a C grade, still waiting for him to reach the potential many thought he had going into this season. Jimmy Graham, a B+, a total mismatch for the Tampa secondary. Graham will likely be targeted a lot this week. For the Bucs, Jameis Winston, a C+. Seattle's top 10 unit against the pass is pretty formidable. Winston put forth some very positive performances over the past month. Something's got to give. My bet is on the Seahawks, who have more INTs than touchdowns allowed. Doug Martin, a B-. The workhorse, Martin faces a Seattle front seven that has regressed a bit over the past month, but is still a top 10 run stopper. Considering the dual threat nature of Martin's game, I think he'll be okay as a running back 2 or flex this week, but his touchdown potential is relatively low, save for an opportunity or two inside the 5. Mike Evans, a B grade. Matchup proof, but wise to temper your expectations considering the greatness of the Legion of Boom. Likely won't see shadow coverage, but will from time to time see Deshaun Shedd or Richard Sherman, neither of which are very fun to run routes against. Adam Humphries, Cecil Shorts, leaving them both on the bench this week. Cameron Brate, a C grade. Seattle remains very strong against all pass catchers, including the tight end position. Chances are there are better options on the waiver wire you could stream this week.
All right, on to the Patriots and the Jets. Tom Brady's going to get an A, obviously. It's always personal between these two teams, so expect it to be a Brady bloodbath and just run up the score. That's what I'm calling, so it's going to happen. Running back LeGarrette Blount, he's my lowest grade all year, B-. Blount's workload is directly affected by the presence of the other two pass catchers in the backfield, especially frustrating inside 10 yards when you see Deion Lewis standing there on the 5-yard line, not Blount. Very unhappy as a Blount owner. Plus, he's going up against the Jets defense that only give up 85 on the ground. Running back James White, Deion Lewis, I'm going to split these guys together here. They're going to get a B. Since they both are involved last week, it's going to be tough this one last week to see how this shakes out, but it's going to pick up pretty quick here going forward. I'll give this one more week, and I'll drop James White off here pretty quick. Julian Edelman's going to get a B+. By virtue of targets and Brady's 50 passing attempts this week, Edelman should have his good game here. He is technically the second leading pass catcher on this roster behind Gronk. Danny Amendola is going to get a C+. I can't start him due to his 200 yards. He's flashy recently with those TDs that came up on the highlight reel, but I can't pull the trigger, so don't get seduced by the dark side. Chris Hogan's going to get a B-. Hogan is who I want, but he has some health issues. Watch that update come Friday and Saturday again. Tight end Rob Gronkowski is going to get an A. Him and Brady are going to run up the score here. No reason to think that he doesn't go for 100 and a touchdown here. He has 21 yards per reception. That's pretty insane, especially for Gronk. Fitzpatrick's going to get a C+. If you have to ask, I want to ask you why he's in your starting lineup.
Are you asking me? Because he's not in my starting lineup.
No, I'm saying if he is in your starting lineup, I'd say why.
At one point, I did roster him in one of my dynasty leagues, but I get dropped.
Well, I had to trade for him because I was in a bad situation, but it worked out for that 1 week. Matt Forte is going to get a B+. He's the best star on the team, 900 yards and 8 touchdowns combined here. Pass give up 107 on the ground, so he should be okay. Bilal Powell's also going to get a B-. Don't count him out. I think he's going to get a lot of work if they can get on the other side of the 50-yard line. So I like Powell. He showed up a little bit. He has 36 receptions, which is intriguing. Brandon Marshall, C-. Lost a step, too much pressure on him. He's getting forced and making some risky grabs. So I can't put my cash on him anymore. And Noonwood's going to get a C+. Same situation, quarterback situation. I don't like Q-Bone, even though he is averaging 14 yards per catch. So that's nothing to discard, but he only has 3 touchdowns. Only really averages less than 4 receptions per game. And that'll pretty much do it because I'm not even mentioning the tight end anymore.
Why not? What about your boy?
Yeah.
Austin Safarian Jenkins. Come on. Where's he at?
Big whiff on that
Come on,
one.
Brian. I thought you were all in on Austin Safarian. ASJ, baby. He's going to the Jets. The Jets are going to have a viable tight end for a change.
Well, then
Wrong.
Then Fitzpatrick shaved his beard. And
that's true. All the magic went away.
Yep.
Decker got hurt. That didn't help. And, of course, they got rid of Chris Ivory in the offseason.
Yep.
And remember our deal last year? It always worked when it was Marshall.
Yep.
It was Decker, and it was Ivory.
Yep.
And with Fitzpatrick under center, that was when the magic happened last year.
Yep.
The Fitz magic went away with his beard.
Wow.
We have one more segment of matchups still to come. Again, we're going to wrap up the show with some fun, the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker, and, of course, Brian and I will have your bargain bin picks as well. I mean, it is week 12 after all. Still is some bye teams and some injuries happening, so you might need a guy off the waiver wire, and we've got a few answers for you upcoming. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show. You're hearing it on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show. It's on the radio each and every Thursday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on 1350 a.m. ESPN Radio in Des Moines, Iowa. But you can also get the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Lots of options out there. And no matter how you found us, we do appreciate it very, very much. He's Brian Eichenberry. I'm Andy Hall. One last set of matchups here. Carolina-Oakland is next for me. First, the Panthers. Cam Newton, a B grade. The Raiders are a bottom third defensive unit, allowing 283 passing yards per game, roughly 2 passing touchdowns on average as well. Those stats are made to look worse than they really are due to some big numbers from Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, and Phillip Rivers earlier this season. Against the run, they're slightly more formidable and trending in the right direction over their past 4 games. This game has the makings of a high-scoring affair, which benefits Newton's unique skill set as a passer and a runner. Solid play despite a less than stellar Week 11 performance. We'd like to forget that one. Jonathan Stewart, a B-. Mentioned the Raiders are trending up against opposing runners. This is a unit that held Jacksonville runners to 105 total yards in Week 7, Tampa runners to 102 total yards in Week 8, and Denver runners to only 33 total yards in Week 9. Jay Stu has benefited from the Panthers coaching staff's reluctance to let Newton run as often since his concussion several weeks ago. Should get plenty of volume here, albeit nothing in the passing game. Kelvin Benjamin, a C+. The Raiders have done an excellent job of keeping number 1 wide receivers out of the end zone as of late. Over the past month, they've shut down Allen Robinson, Mike Evans, Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. Benjamin may get his fair share of targets here, but you can't expect anything more than yardage considering recent history. Ted Ginn, a C grade, more than capable of finding the end zone as the team's primary downfield threat. Ginn won't find it easy to get behind the Raiders' up-and-coming secondary that includes former Kansas City Chiefs Sean Smith, who's pretty good at his job. Tight end Greg Olsen, an A grade. Oakland continued to be one of the most tight end-friendly defenses in the league, allowing nearly 60 yards receiving per game to the position. A total of 5 tight end scores on the season. Olsen is, as usual, an elite start. Over to the Raiders. Quarterback Derek Carr, an A grade. Carolina are among the worst defenses in the league against the pass. They've allowed the 5th most yards through the air, the 4th most passing touchdowns on the season thus far. Carr and his squad have been on fire, and he's among the best starts of the week. Latavius Murray, a B grade. He won't be able to get much done against the league's best against the run. The Panthers rank 4th in yards allowed to opposing runners and have given up only 5 rushing scores on the season. While Murray should be in line for volume, especially if the Raiders get up early and want to salt the game away, I'm not counting on him reaching the end zone at all. DeAndre Washington, I'm leaving him on the bench. Amari Cooper, an A-. This feels like a pass-heavy script will be employed by the Raiders, looking to take advantage of one of the league's most paltry defenses against opposing pass catchers. Cooper, kind of a no-brainer here, as is Michael Crabtree. He gets a B+. A total of roughly 8 fantasy points separates Cooper from Crabtree in half PPR leagues. The tandem is perhaps the perfect example of a true 1A, 1B, and both should should benefit relatively equally in such a plus matchup. Finally, Seth Roberts, a C+, because he's always targeted near the red zone.
Every single time.
And I don't know why, but it seems to work out sometimes for him.
Because they don't want Cooper to have a touchdown.
As a Cooper fan, are you feeling that?
Do you think the Panthers wish they would have paid Josh Norman?
Oh, my God, yes. That was the
man.
biggest mistake they made was
Terrible.
not paying that man.
Terrible.
Yep.
My turn. Chiefs at the Broncos. Quarterback Alex Smith. Go ahead and leave him on the bench for obvious reasons. You don't need me to tell you that the Denver Broncos are a killer in the pass defense. Where they aren't, Spencer Ware, B+. Denver run defense gives up a decent amounts, 129 yards on the ground to be exact. People are stunned at Denver's lacking run defense and their decline. I've been talking about it for weeks now.
But they started off as like one of the best in the league at the beginning of the season, and then they just started going down that list and down that list.
Yeah.
Now they're one of the worst in the league.
One of the
run.
worst. No one ever listens to me. I think Ware goes off and gives good point total here, 80 and a touchdown. Wide receiver Jeremy Maclin, he's got his groin issues. Only has a few hundred yards, so he's up and down as he is every year. Desperation play at best this week, especially given the matchup and his injury. Tyreek Hill's going to get a C if you start him, especially if Maclin doesn't go. That makes his situation even worse because he'll be drawing Talib then in coverage. So if you're starting him, you're hoping for a TD. Maybe you can sneak it in with Denver, but I can't imagine a scenario where a Chiefs wide receiver gets a touchdown this week. Someone who may, tight end Travis Kelce, is going to get a B. Best receiver on the team and as many touchdowns as the other 3 pass catchers. Give him a go this week if you have him. I kind of like that action there on the Kelce. On the Broncos, quarterback Trevor Siemian's going to get a C. Chiefs force a lot of turnovers, but they do give up a decent amount of yardage. That's their game, so it won't be any different this week either, except for Simeon's kind of terrible. So
yeah, they take a lot of risks, and therefore a lot of big plays end up happening against the Chiefs, even though they, do capitalize and get a lot of turnovers too.
yeah, that's what I like about having them as a defense, especially in leagues that don't do yardage, is, hey, they get turnovers, and turnovers are points, man. I love it.
Yep.
Capri Bibbs, Devontae Booker, whoever's going to get the go here, I'm giving them B's again, split grade. We were always told that, Bibbs is going to be lion's share here, and then he kind of wasn't, and then...
Oh, Sherman, look what you've done to your Capri Bibs.
Oh, my
They're
goodness.
so messy. Sounds like a child's outfit. Capri Bibs. Put your Capri Bibs on.
Yeah, put your Capri Bibs.
Look what you've done to your
Osh,
Capri
gosh,
Bibs.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I don't know who's playing what, giving the reps, breakdowns. I don't know. Start Bibbs, I guess, but it's a dice roll for me. The Chiefs adopt that bend, don't break mentality on the defense. So you're going to get yardage. You may just not get those touchdowns. Wide receiver Demaryius Thomas is going to get a B-. He's still good as long as the screens work. He has 670 yards, which is way below his pace like he was last year. 5 touchdowns. It's more Simeon than Demaryius Thomas. That affects the grade here. Emmanuel Sanders is going to get a B. He's the better play of the two. I've been saying it all years. He only has 10 less yards than Demaryius Thomas, but is 2 touchdowns shy of him. I like his style. It suits Simeon better because he is not a downfield passer. And for the tight end situation, I'm passing on pretty much anybody else in this offense.
All right, one final matchup to fight our way through here. Green Bay at Philadelphia. Begin with the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, a B-. Not prepared to bet against him per se, but let's face the facts. Philly ranks 7th in passing yards allowed. Only 13 passing touchdowns have been scored against the Eagles. They're also a frequently blitzing unit, as I've mentioned here. Russell Wilson threw for 272 and 1 last week. Matt Ryan went 267, 1 and 1 back in week 10. Due to volume, Rodgers will always be in the starting lineup, I guess, but it may be wise to temper expectations this weekend on the road. James Starks, a C+, largely unimpressive from a yards per carry standpoint since his return to the field. Starks has taken advantage of a carry inside the 5-yard line and a broken coverage to score his touchdowns. Philadelphia are a very disciplined run-stuffing unit, allowing 4.4 yards per carry, only 4 scores on the ground all season long. Christine Michael, there are reports that he may be ready for action this weekend. My guess is he probably doesn't know the playbook enough to get requisite carries for your starting lineup, so I'm leaving him on the bench. Jordy Nelson, a B grade, didn't see the staggering target numbers he had been seeing recently last week, but did capitalize on his few opportunities by scoring a questionable at best touchdown against Washington. Don't know if you noticed that call, Brian.
Nope.
So he caught the ball in the back of the end zone.
I seen it. I was
Defenseman
so mad.
comes over and knocks the ball out of his hand.
He didn't make a football move.
Nope. And
he was not a runner.
He barely even got that ball tucked under his arm.
He thought it was an incomplete pass.
I know. He thought so too. And the ref gave him a touchdown.
And
he
he's
looked
like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So
Terrible.
Yeah, questionable at best there. But
Terrible.
he'll always be one of Rodgers' first options in the passing game, but he may have a more difficult road here in Week 12, just a heads up. Devontae Adams, a B-. I've been on his bandwagon since about Week 5. His target numbers and subsequent production have been phenomenal from a fantasy standpoint. Week 11 wasn't the most exciting outcome, but the 3-catch, 42-yard performance figures to be the outlier rather than the usual. Randall Cobb, a C+. Slot guys like Cobb have had some success versus Philadelphia. Doug Baldwin, Taylor Gabriel, Victor Cruz have all had solid days against them in recent weeks. Jared Cook, back on the field, a C grade. Philly is number 3 against opposing tight ends, giving up an average of only 23 receiving yards per game to the position. Only 2 tight end scores all season. Don't chase last week's box score. Cook is still an inconsistent guy with a ton of potential, but his usage will confound you more than impress. For the Eagles, Carson Wentz, a B+. Only 5 defenses allow a weekly quarterback rating on average in the triple digits. That's impressive. Carson Wentz typically hasn't been impressive at all this season, but it's not all his fault. He's a rookie with a lackluster receiving core and a coaching staff that doesn't let him throw downfield much. Enter the Packers, a severely banged-up secondary that gives up 255 yards per game to opposing passers, a total of 19 passing touchdowns. Could be a good game for him. The running backs are all banged up, so I'm really not advocating starting any of them in this game. It's a tough matchup. Jordan Matthews, I'll give a B+ too. A very quiet 10-target day for him last week. The Seahawks secondary can make that much opportunity look paltry when you consider Matthews only caught 50% of those passes on Sunday. Much better chance he produces this week. Dorial Green-Beckham, a C+. I think you got to consider him here because who else is there? Not Nelson Aguilar. He's on the bench. And Zach Ertz, a B-. The Packers are 7th most generous defense against the tight end position. Ertz is flying high after actually reaching the end zone in Week 11. Imagine that.
Yeah, he did.
That'll do it for the matchups. So Brian and I have some fun coming up. The bargain bin picks, and then, of course, the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker. All next on 515 Fantasy Football. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa, on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eichenberry. You can reach us on Facebook. We answer back. Everything you write gets an answer. We don't ignore anybody because that happens too often in the fantasy world. People reach out all the time for help, and these guys that are like self-proclaimed experts, and they're the ones supposedly like making the big money and whatnot, ignore people.
And
so
then they
often.
just recommend Antonio Brown. It's like, oh, cool, thanks.
Oh, yeah, thanks. The big names never take big risks or anything.
Yeah.
So it's
Cool.
all boring. I mean, I don't really give those people any time, to be honest.
That's why we're one of a kind, man. I mean, we're here breaking down every matchup and every fantasy relevant player, which is really the information you need. You don't need me to tell you to start Antonio Brown or Drew Brees.
Right. In addition to Facebook, by the way, we're on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. I'm at Andy Hall Radio. He's at IkeFFB. That's IKEFFB. You might not want us to tell you to start Antonio Brown, but you might need some help at the quarterback position, the running back position, or a pass catcher position, whether that's wide receiver or tight end. So we have the bargain bin picks. And here in Week 12, boy,
Right.
it just gets tougher and tougher, doesn't it?
does.
So if you're in need of somebody, a dart throw, and you want to pick them up, chances are these guys are on your waiver wire. You can pick them up, throw them in your lineup, and expect a decent amount of production from. Who's your quarterback this week?
Well, I would like to preface that with saying, or if you're looking for somebody to blame your loss on, then you can take a bargain bin pick and say, hey, they told me to do it.
Yeah, you know what? Don't be that guy. I've had some of those on Twitter, especially where they come back at me at maybe I was wrong on something, or maybe they were right.
I'm sorry, I didn't foresee the injury in the first 5 minutes of the
Yeah,
game.
don't be that guy. I mean, this does happen. I mean, if I got all these predictions correct, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be in
Yeah.
Vegas making lots of money.
Making
So,
lots of money.
yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is. So
Well, I'm going to kick it off with quarterback Brock Osweiler. I kind of beat him up in the matchup, but the reality is it's a 28th ranked pass defense. And at this late in the season, if you're in one of those leagues where someone picks up 4 quarterbacks and they're just sitting on them so nobody else can have one later on, fine. You know what? Then roll with Brock Osweiler against a really soft Chargers pass defense and pray a little bit.
my quarterback this week is Ryan Tannehill, owned in 24% of Yahoo Fantasy Leagues. This week, it's a Niners defense that has allowed 23 passing touchdowns on the season, as I said in the breakdown of the matchup a while back, including 4 last week to the Patriots' Tom Brady. Now, granted, Tannehill is no Brady, but when he's up against a terrible secondary, as he was back in Week 3 versus Cleveland, for example, he's capable of putting up good numbers. How does 319 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 INTs sound?
Sexy.
That's not bad, right? Oh, by the way, he can also run, and the Niners are historically bad against opposing runners. So, Ryan Tannehill, maybe. How about your runner this week? Who's that?
My runner is Tim Hightower. He is owned in less than half of Yahoo Fantasy Football leagues. People are not paying attention. Ingram has been hurt twice now this year. How do you not have Tim Hightower on your roster, especially with this concussion that may be happening here?
My runner is Matt Asiata.
Oh,
Owned in
yucky.
49% of Yahoo
49.
49% of Yahoo Fantasy Leagues. You're banking on the Vikings giving him opportunities inside the 5-yard line, where he is one of the most efficient runners in the league, converting on nearly 100% of his goal line chances. You may be asking yourself, are the Lions a great run defense?
No.
They've only given up 4 rushing scores on the year. No, it's not that. It's that opposing passers are throwing all over them.
Yep.
Bradford actually may have been a stronger bargain bin pick at the quarterback position than Tannehill. But I'm taking the contrarian stance and endorsing the tight end dependent Matt Asiata. You need 3 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. You need 7 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. Who's your pass catcher?
Pass catcher is someone I picked to be the biggest sleeper this year that I whiffed on, Mohamed Sanu. Look, the way the Cards are going to play this is I firmly believe that the Cards are going to make Matt Ryan beat them with Mohamed Sanu. and they're going to completely box out Julio Jones, leaving Sanu opportunities to get you some points. I really, truly believe that.
Might actually be a good opportunity for rookie tight end Austin Hooper.
Austin Hooper, yeah.
Now
There's not enough work for me to put any kind of faith in him yet.
But, I mean, if they're not giving Julio Jones any room at all, that's going to free up the middle. And Austin Hooper, now that Jacob Tammy's out of the mix, I mean, that could be a nice little play, too. I wish I would have thought of that. Actually, no, my pass catcher, are you done with that? Sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
Okay. My pass catcher's Michael Floyd. All right, he's owned in 48% of Yahoo Fantasy Leagues, so he's in over half leagues. He's still available. He's been dropped by a number of owners that believed the report that J.J. Nelson had usurped him on the depth chart in Arizona. Obviously, that was a trap, and Floyd continues to run with the ones. Against bad secondaries like Arizona's Week 12 opponent, the Atlanta Falcons, Floyd either has a big yardage game as he did against San Fran in Week 10, 5 receptions, 101 yards, or he scores a touchdown as he did against the Jets in Week 6, an equally bad defense against the pass. This game should feature plenty of scoring, and the Cardinals figure to probably be playing from behind all day long, which means a lot of passing. Floyd is still Carson Palmer's second favorite receiving option behind Fitzgerald and should get work on Sunday. I think you pick him up if he's available, where a lot of people had dropped him.
Yeah, well, I talked about that in my matchup. He's stepping up.
There you have it. You did some homework for me.
I did.
The 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker is how we wrap up each and every week. Thanks to Brian, came up with the idea. Allows us to stretch out and talk about some other things as we, look forward to the Week 12 matchups and Turkey Day. I have something I want to lead with real quick.
I just want to do one fun fact.
Okay.
It was originally named the Pigskin Potpourri.
Oh.
Remember that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
And you're like, no, that the potpourri thing doesn't quite work with fantasy football, so that's why we come up with the flea flicker.
Poopery? No.
Pigskin potpourri.
I didn't like that at all. So you're right about that. What I wanted to say real quick before we dive in, because I'm sure we're going to talk about food, being that Thanksgiving is upon us and, all that. It's my favorite holiday on the calendar. And here I am. I'm starting to drift into Thanksgiving already. No, what I want to do is I want to complain about referees a little bit in the NFL.
Geez.
There was this play on Monday night in the Oakland-Houston game that was down in Mexico City where DeAndre Hopkins found himself down the sideline and kind of tiptoeing the sideline and avoided some defense, some secondary members, and would have scored a touchdown, but they blew the play dead because they thought that he stepped out of bounds. You kept looking at replays, though, and he did not step out of bounds. The unfortunate thing is, apparently, if a referee blows his whistle and the play is dead, you can't challenge that. Why? In this day and age, we've got instant replay. We've got the video, high-definition video. You can see clear as day that he would have been clear for a touchdown had they not blown that dead.
Because if I'm the defender, I can say, he blew the whistle, I stopped playing. We are taught to play to the whistle.
Boy, that's
and
bunk.
I heard the whistle, so I stopped running. There was a play. God, this was back when Barry Sanders was carrying the ball. There was a fan back at the Pontiac Silverdome who had a whistle, and he blew the whistle after like 3 yards. Everybody stopped except for Barry Sanders, and he wanted to have like a 70-yard touchdown. And the official's like, we didn't blow the whistle.
Oh.
That was a fan who blew the whistle, and everybody
awful.
stopped, which I thought was kind of funny.
That's all I wanted to complain about real quick.
Okay.
They should just let the play resume, Don't blow it so quickly, Let the play out and then review it after the fact. Anyway, Thanksgiving, Brian.
Okay.
I love the holiday for a lot of reasons. It's family time for me. I don't see my family that much. I'm not talking about the wife and kids, talking about like my mom and my siblings.
I don't see them. I keep them locked in the closet.
Yeah, exactly. They're in the dungeon. No, but I mean, it's family time. We travel. Usually we go up to Minneapolis, my hometown, spend it up there, eat some awesome food. My mom makes a feast for kings. Taking naps, watching football, leftovers, sleeping in on Black Friday because I refuse to get up early to try to get a deal.
I love Black Friday.
I know you're a fan because you're cutthroat.
I am. I'm an unapologetic American capitalist.
Right.
I am in it for me and me alone. I will charge the mountains of Walmart and Target and Best Buys, and I will conquer. I will elbow check, and I will do whatever it takes to get me a deal.
Right in the throat.
Right in the throat.
Yeah. Anything you want to talk about this week, Brian?
One thing real quick, just kind of talking about this with a friend, and this is kind of draft strategy, playing, starting, how you're doing it. If you have picked somebody in the first 4 rounds of your draft, they should never be on your bench. You drafted them rounds 1 through 4. They are matchup proof, and you will start every single week.
Things happen.
No.
I mean, Todd Gurley. Look at what DeAndre Hopkins.
Bench Gurley.
4 rounds is pretty steep. You're not really thinking about putting a league together like that, are you? I don't know many guys that would want to play in that league.
No, I'm just saying in a regular draft, if you picked players in rounds 1 through 4, they should be forever starts in your lineup.
You would think, but things happen.
I don't know. Hopkins is a different story, but if you're when in doubt, if you can't get through to us quickly enough, if you drafted them in rounds 4 or higher, start them.
Okay,
that's my call.
All right. Well, maybe next year
it was my open mic.
Before you go into your drafts next year, make sure to consult with Brian and myself.
That's right.
We'll tell you. We'll guide you.
Hey, we got this.
We know how to win championships.
And for the right price, I will be on call.
Wow. All right.
Look at that.
New development here at the end of the show.
Dun.
All right. We thank you for listening. We hope you'll tune in again next week, and good luck to everybody this week. For Brian Eikenberry, I'm Andy Hall. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show.